Not all love stories are meant to inspire. Some are meant to warn us. In After We Collided, Tessa and Hardin's relationship captivated millions across the globe, but not because it was perfect. It was messy, painful, and exhausting. Theirs was a romance that constantly blurred the line between passion and destruction, between love and emotional chaos. From the outside, they seemed like two people destined to be together. The longing stares, the heated arguments, the intense chemistry, it looked like the kind of love that could move mountains. But underneath, they were moving landmines, ready to explode at the slightest wrong step. Each carried wounds from their past, and instead of healing together, they poured salt into each other's scars. Tessa came into the relationship as someone seeking stability and meaning, while Hardin entered with baggage so heavy it could sink them both. Her need to save him clashed with his inability to trust, and this constant push and pull turned their love into a battlefield. Every time they tried to build something, their unresolved pain tore it apart. What made their relationship especially tragic is that they did love each other, fiercely. But fierce love without emotional maturity can turn into fierce destruction. Both of them made choices that hurt the other, and both fed into the cycle. The highs were intoxicating, the lows were devastating, and there was no middle ground. To understand why the world called them toxic, we need to see how their struggles intertwined. It wasn't just Hardin's demons or Tessa's mistakes, it was how they collided, creating a perfect storm of love and pain. 1. Unresolved trauma on both sides. Hardin's childhood wasn't just difficult, it was emotionally scarring. Growing up surrounded by betrayal, absence, and a lack of emotional safety made him believe that love was unreliable. Every relationship he'd seen had ended in pain, so his heart was already conditioned to expect abandonment. Tessa, on the other hand, entered with her own silent wounds. Her need to help and save people stemmed from her own insecurities and desire to feel needed. This dynamic meant she often stayed in situations that were hurting her, thinking she could fix them. Instead of healing separately, they brought these unhealed parts of themselves into the relationship, creating a volatile environment. When a small disagreement happened, it didn't just stay about that disagreement, it triggered years of buried hurt. A simple misunderstanding could spiral into hours of emotional chaos because neither of them was just reacting to the present moment, they were reacting to the ghosts of their pasts. To the outside world, their fights seemed overdramatic, but to them, every argument was a survival battle. Hardin's abandonment fears made him defensive and controlling, while Tessa's savior complex kept her holding on even when it was damaging her. This cycle made them more codependent, not closer, and it laid the foundation for every other toxic pattern that followed. 2. Lack of emotional regulation. Hardin's temper was like a ticking time bomb. Small triggers could lead to explosive reactions, and once his emotions took over, logic had no place in the conversation. Tessa's natural coping mechanism was to withdraw when things got heated, which only made Hardin angrier because it felt like rejection. Instead of calming each other, their emotional styles clashed in a way that escalated conflicts rather than resolving them. When people can't regulate their emotions, they can't communicate effectively, and that was exactly what happened here. Hardin's yelling would push Tessa further into silence, and Tessa's silence would fuel Hardin's rage. Neither side felt heard, and so the resentment grew like an unspoken shadow in the relationship. Even moments of peace felt temporary because neither of them had the tools to handle the next inevitable argument. This lack of emotional regulation didn't just harm their relationship, it harmed them individually. They began to associate love with constant tension, mistaking adrenaline for intimacy. The inability to manage emotions meant they were always at the mercy of the next mood swing, which made it nearly impossible to feel truly safe with one another. 3. Constant breakup, make-up cycle. Their love wasn't steady, it was a roller coaster. They'd fight, break up dramatically, and then come back together with equal intensity. Every reconciliation felt electric, almost like falling in love for the first time all over again. But this wasn't romance, it was addiction to the emotional high of making up after chaos. The problem with this cycle is that it tricks you into thinking the relationship is stronger because you survived the fight. In reality, the core issues never get solved. For Tessa and Hardin, each breakup only temporarily patched the wounds, and every breakup made those wounds deeper. Over time, the pattern became predictable, and that predictability drained trust. To outsiders, it became exhausting to watch, because they could see the destruction happening in real time. The constant breakup signaled instability, and without stability, love can't grow roots. They weren't building a life together, they were just rebuilding the same broken house over and over again. 4. Miscommunication and assumptions. One of the deadliest weapons in their relationship was assumption. Hardin often assumed the worst about Tessa's actions, while Tessa assumed certain truths were better left unsaid to avoid drama. These silent decisions created a relationship full of half-truths, misunderstandings, and unspoken resentment. The lack of direct communication meant that small issues snowballed. Instead of clarifying, Hardin would jump to anger, and instead of confronting, Tessa would hide information. This didn't just create mistrust, it cemented it. Every fight seemed to have layers of misinterpretation underneath, making it harder to resolve the actual problem. Healthy love needs transparency, but their love became a guessing game. They weren't truly seeing each other for who they were reacting to the versions of each other they imagined in their heads. And when you fight ghosts instead of reality, there's no way to win. 5. Jealousy and possessiveness. Hardin's jealousy wasn't subtle, it was intense, sometimes crossing the line into possessiveness. He often felt threatened by any man in Tessa's orbit, no matter how innocent the interaction. While some might see jealousy as a sign of love, in their case it was a sign of fear and control. Tessa wasn't entirely blameless here either. Sometimes her responses to his jealousy would unintentionally fuel it, either by downplaying situations or refusing to acknowledge his insecurities. Instead of establishing healthy boundaries, they played loyalty-testing games that left both of them feeling more suspicious than secure. Over time, this possessiveness became suffocating. Love thrives on trust, but when trust is replaced by constant surveillance and suspicion, it stops being love and starts being control. And control always pushes love further away. 6. Using pain as proof of love. For Tessa and Hardin, love and pain were tangled together in a dangerous knot. They believed that if they weren't fighting, they weren't truly passionate. The more they hurt each other, the more they convinced themselves it meant the love was deep, because surely you wouldn't feel so much if it didn't matter, right? This belief romanticized suffering and made them see chaos as a sign of devotion. The problem with using pain as proof of love is that it keeps you trapped in unhealthy cycles. Every fight felt like a test of endurance, and every breakup felt like a reward for surviving it. But surviving pain isn't the same as building happiness. For Tessa and Hardin, this blurred line meant they were chasing intensity, not stability. To outsiders, it was obvious that this wasn't love in its purest form, it was addiction to emotional highs and lows. The real proof of love is consistency, kindness, and safety. Unfortunately, they were so used to chaos that peace felt like something was missing. The world didn't label Tessa and Hardin toxic because they didn't love each other, they clearly did. But love alone isn't enough when it's trapped in a cycle of mistrust, anger, and emotional dependency. Their story was proof that chemistry without stability is like fire without control, it burns everything in its path. For some, their relationship was romanticized as passionate and all-consuming. For others, it was a cautionary tale about what happens when two people hold onto each other so tightly that they can't breathe. Passion without peace isn't love, it's survival, and survival mode eventually wears you down. In the end, Tessa and Hardin's story became more than just a romance on screen. It became a global mirror reflecting the truth: love can be intense, addictive, and unforgettable, but if it doesn't bring you peace, safety, and growth, it's not the love you deserve. And maybe, just maybe, the bravest kind of love is knowing when to let go.